The great chamber of the Galactic Council stretched high above the assembled delegates, its crystalline walls catching the light from 3 different suns that shone through the transparent dome. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the vast floor, his hands clasped behind his back as he faced the curved rows of alien representatives. The weight of 2 billion human souls pressed down on his shoulders above him. The towering figure of High Counselor Vexthara leaned forward on her throne-like seat. Her 6 arms moved in complex patterns as she spoke, each gesture carrying meaning that only the most experienced diplomats could read. The Valkyrie leader's voice echoed through the chamber with the force of ancient authority. The humans have shown themselves to be a threat to galactic peace, she declared, her words translated into 100 different languages through the neural implants every delegate wore. Their expansion into the border systems has been aggressive and reckless. They have ignored our warnings and continued their territorial claims despite clear boundaries established by this council 3,000 years ago. Jake kept his expression neutral even as anger burned in his chest. The border systems had been empty when humanity found them. The ancient markers the Valkyrie claimed as territorial boundaries were nothing more than automated beacons floating in dead space, their original purpose lost to time. But he had learned that logic meant little in this chamber where age and tradition held more weight than justice. In the gallery above, Captain Lisa Hayes watched the proceedings with growing frustration. Her uniform bore the insignia of the Earth Defense Force, and her hand rested unconsciously on the ceremonial sidearm at her hip. Around her sat dozens of other human observers, their faces grim as they watched their species being put on trial for the crime of existing in a galaxy that had no room for newcomers. Admiral Frank Carter sat 3 rows behind Lisa, his weathered face showing none of the emotion that churned beneath the surface. He had fought in the border wars, had seen human colonies reduced to ash by Valkyrie raiders who claimed they were simply enforcing ancient territorial rights. The same raiders who now sat in judgment of humanity's supposed aggression. Dr. Amy Rodriguez leaned forward in her seat, her scientific mind analyzing every word and gesture from the alien delegates. As humanity's chief xenobiologist, she had spent years studying the various species that made up the Galactic Council. What she had learned filled her with dread. The Council was not a democracy or even an oligarchy. It was a carefully maintained hierarchy where the oldest species held absolute power over the younger ones. The Valkyrie had been spacefaring for over 50,000 years. The Zephyrians had conquered their first star system when Earth was still locked in ice ages. Even the youngest council members, the Corthan Federation, had been exploring space for 10 millennia before humans invented the wheel. To them, humanity was not just young but dangerously unpredictable. The evidence speaks for itself, continued High Counselor Vexthara. In the short span of 3 centuries since first contact, humans have established colonies in over 200 systems. They have developed weapons technology that rivals our own despite having no guidance from established civilizations. They have shown a disturbing tendency toward independence and innovation that threatens the stability we have maintained for millennia. Jake felt his jaw clench. Innovation was a crime now? Independence was a threat? He thought of the human colonies scattered across council space, each one a testament to his species' determination to survive and thrive among the stars. Those colonies housed families, schools, research facilities, and dreams of a better future. Now they were being painted as aggressive outposts of a warlike species. Ambassador Morrison, the High Counselor's voice cut through his thoughts. You may present your final defense. Jake stepped forward, his voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber without the need for amplification. Honored counselors, humanity stands before you not as conquerors but as a species seeking our place among the stars. We have never initiated hostilities against any council member. Our colonies exist in systems that were uninhabited when we found them. Our technologies were developed through our own research and ingenuity, not through theft or aggression. Murmurs rippled through the alien delegates. Some species nodded in acknowledgement while others remained unmoved. Jake pressed on, knowing this might be his last chance to speak for his people. We have contributed to galactic civilization in our short time here. Our medical research has saved lives across dozens of species. Our engineering solutions have improved trade routes and communication networks. Our cultural exchanges have enriched the diversity of council space. We ask not for special treatment but for the same rights granted to every council member. High Councillor Vexthara's expression did not change. The council has deliberated. The decision is final. The chamber fell silent as she rose from her throne. Her voice carried the weight of absolute authority as she pronounced judgment on humanity. The species known as humans are hereby expelled from council space. You have 90 standard days to evacuate all colonies, installations, and military assets beyond the outer boundary markers. Any human presence detected in council space after this period will be considered an act of war. The words hit the human delegation like a physical blow. Lisa Hayes felt her hands grip the armrests of her chair so tightly that the metal groaned under the pressure. Admiral Carter's face remained stone, but his eyes burned with cold fury. Dr. Rodriguez closed her eyes and tried to calculate the logistics of evacuating millions of people in 3 months. Jake Morrison stood alone on the chamber floor as the alien delegates began to file out. Some avoided his gaze while others stared with open curiosity, as if watching an extinct species take its final breath. The Valkyrie delegation lingered, their 6-armed forms moving with predatory grace as they whispered among themselves. As the chamber emptied, Jake was joined by the rest of the human delegation. Admiral Carter placed a firm hand on the ambassador's shoulder. "We'll make them regret this," the admiral said quietly. Jake shook his head. "We'll make them irrelevant." Captain Ben Davis approached from the communication station where he had been monitoring transmissions from human space. His face was pale but determined. "Sir, I've been tracking council communications during the trial. The Valkyrie have been planning this for months. They're afraid of us." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her tablet where she had been running evacuation calculations. "Afraid of what we might become, you mean?" "No," Ben said, his voice carrying a note of grim satisfaction. "Afraid of what we already are." As the human delegation prepared to leave the council chambers for the last time, none of them could imagine that their exile would become the foundation of something greater than anything the ancient council had ever achieved. They saw only the end of humanity's place in civilized space they could not yet see. The beginning of something entirely new. The great ships of humanity began their exodus within days, carrying not just people and equipment but the dreams and determination of a species that had never learned how to surrender. Behind them they left empty colonies and abandoned outposts. Ahead of them lay the unknown darkness of the Outer Rim, where ancient dangers and forgotten civilizations waited in the cold between the stars. The red sun of New Eden cast long shadows across the construction site as Kate Williams surveyed the growing settlement. 6 months had passed since the exodus from council space, and humanity was learning to survive in the harsh territories beyond civilized borders. The prefabricated buildings stretched for kilometers across the rocky landscape, their metal walls gleaming in the alien sunlight. Kate pulled her jacket tighter against the cold wind that swept down from the northern mountains. The atmospheric processors were working, but it would take years before New Eden felt like home. Around her, thousands of workers moved with purpose, assembling housing units, power generators, and communication arrays. The sound of construction filled the air with a constant rhythm of progress. "Colony Administrator Williams," called a voice behind her. She turned to see Dr. Pete Collins approaching, his geological scanner in hand and excitement written across his face. The terraforming specialist had been working non-stop since their arrival, mapping the planet's resources and potential. "What have you found now, Pete?" Kate asked, noting the barely contained enthusiasm in his voice. "Something incredible," he replied, gesturing toward the eastern horizon where strange spires rose from the landscape like twisted fingers of black stone. "Those formations aren't natural. They're ruins, Kate. Ancient alien structures that predate anything we've seen in council space." Kate followed his gaze to the mysterious spires. The colonists had been avoiding that area since landing, something about the place feeling wrong in a way that defied explanation. The structures seemed to bend light around them, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at directly. "How old?" she asked. "Initial scans suggest millions of years. Maybe older. The metal composition is unlike anything in our databases. It's almost like the entire complex is made from a single molecular structure." Before Kate could respond, her communication device buzzed with an urgent message. "Commander Rick Thompson's." Voice crackled through the static-filled connection. "Kate, we've got a situation out here. You need to see this." Rick's exploration team had been mapping the outer system when they discovered something that changed everything. His ship, the Pathfinder, hung in space near a massive asteroid field that shouldn't have existed according to their star charts. The rocks moved in patterns that defied the laws of physics, swirling around each other in perfect spirals. "What am I looking at, Rick?" Kate's voice came through the ship's speakers as she watched the live feed from his position. "I'm not sure," Rick admitted, his eyes fixed on the sensor readings. "The asteroids are artificial. They're hollow, and there's something inside them. Energy signatures unlike anything we've encountered." As Rick spoke, one of the larger asteroids began to change. Its surface rippled like water, revealing a smooth metallic shell underneath the rocky exterior. Ports opened along its sides, and smaller objects began emerging from within. "Are those ships?" asked Lieutenant Dan Moore, Rick's second in command. The objects moved with purpose, approaching the human vessel in a formation that was neither threatening nor welcoming. They were sleek and organic-looking, more grown than built. As they drew closer, the Pathfinder's communication systems activated on their own. A sound filled the ship's bridge, not quite music and not quite language. It was harmonic and complex, conveying meaning without words. Rick felt understanding flow into his mind, and the knowledge that came with it made his blood run cold. "Kate," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we're not alone out here. There are others, and they've been waiting." Back on New Eden, Dr. Amy Rodriguez was making her own disturbing discoveries. The xenobiologist had been studying samples from the various worlds humanity had claimed in the Outer Rim, and what she found defied conventional understanding of galactic biology. "The DNA structures are wrong," she explained to Kate during their evening briefing. "Every planet we've surveyed shows evidence of the same genetic markers, as if all life in the Outer Rim originated from a single source." Amy's laboratory was filled with specimens from a dozen different worlds, each one telling the same impossible story. Plants, microorganisms, and even traced genetic material from long-extinct creatures all shared common elements that shouldn't exist across such vast distances. "It's like someone seeded this entire region of space," Amy continued, her voice troubled. "But the timescales involved are enormous. This would have taken millions of years to accomplish." Kate stared at the genetic analysis on Amy's screen. The implications were staggering. If someone had deliberately prepared the Outer Rim for colonization, then humanity's exile might not have been the punishment it appeared to be. Meanwhile, engineer Maya Singh was revolutionizing human technology out of sheer necessity. Cut off from council supply chains and trade networks, humanity had been forced to innovate or perish. Maya's breakthrough came when she discovered that the strange energy signatures from the asteroid field could be harnessed and used. "It's quantum-based," she explained to a gathering of engineers and scientists. "The energy exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously, which means we can tap into it without depleting the source." Maya's quantum mining technique allowed humans to extract resources from previously untouchable asteroid fields. The technology was beyond anything Council science had achieved. Born from the desperate creativity of a species fighting for survival, her innovations didn't stop there. The quantum energy could be used for faster-than-light communication, creating an instant link between human settlements across the Outer Rim. For the first time since Exile, humanity could coordinate their efforts across multiple star systems. The test of human character came when Captain Lisa Hayes detected a distress signal from deep space. Her ship, the Defiant, was on patrol near the boundary between the Outer Rim and Council space when the transmission came through. "It's a Corthan vessel," reported her communications officer. "They're under attack by unknown hostiles." Lisa stared at the tactical display showing the alien ship's position. The Corthans had voted for humanity's exile. They had watched silently as her species was driven from civilized space. Every logical instinct told her to ignore the signal and continue her patrol. "Captain," her tactical officer said quietly, "their shields are failing. Whatever's attacking them, it's tearing them apart." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment, thinking of the human colonies struggling to survive in the darkness of the Outer Rim. She thought of the children, who would grow up never knowing the security of Council space. She thought of the injustice that had brought them all to this place. Then she opened her eyes and gave the order that would define humanity's future among the stars. "All hands to battle stations. Set course for the Corthan vessel. Maximum speed." The Defiant leaped forward through space, racing toward a battle that would cost them resources they couldn't afford to lose. But Lisa Hayes had learned something in the months since Exile that no Council species seemed to understand. Survival wasn't just about staying alive. It was about staying human. As her ship charged toward the unknown enemy, Lisa felt a fierce pride in her species. They might be exiles and outcasts, but they were still the people who would risk everything to save strangers who had wronged them. In the darkness of the Outer Rim, humanity was discovering who they really were. Dr. Alex Turner stood before the massive entrance to the underground complex on Kepler 442b. His archaeological team gathered behind him in the pale light of the planet's twin moons. The structure they had discovered stretched deep into the planet's crust, its walls covered with symbols that seemed to shift and change when viewed directly. 3 months of careful excavation had revealed only the surface of what lay beneath. "The energy readings are off the charts," said Dr. Helen Ross, Alex's deputy, as she checked her scanner for the 100th time. "Whatever powered this place is still active after millions of years." Alex nodded, running his fingers along the smooth wall beside the entrance. The material felt warm to the touch, almost alive. Since humanity's exile to the Outer Rim, they had found ruins like this on a dozen different worlds. All bore the same architectural style, the same impossible technology, and the same haunting beauty that spoke of a civilization far beyond anything the current galaxy had achieved. "The translation software is finally making progress," called out linguist Dr. Mark Chun from his position near a wall covered in flowing script. "These aren't just decorations, they're warnings." Alex moved to Mark's side, studying the symbols that danced across the wall like living things. The translation appeared on Mark's tablet in fragments, pieces of meaning that slowly formed a larger message. "Beware those who claim dominion over the stars," Mark read aloud. "The cycle of oppression must be broken. We who came before leave this gift for those who would choose a different path." The word sent a chill through the archaeological team. The implications were staggering. This ancient civilization, which Alex's team had begun calling the architects, had faced the same challenges humanity now confronted. They had been opposed by some form of galactic authority, just as humans now faced the Council's judgment. Captain Ben Davis received the archaeological team's report while his ship explored the outer reaches of the Kepler system. The New Horizon had been modified with quantum sensors developed by Maya Singh, allowing it to detect energy signatures that conventional technology missed. What they found in the system's asteroid belt defied explanation. "Captain," his science officer called out, "you need to see this." Ben moved to the sensor station and stared at the readings. Buried within a seemingly normal asteroid was a structure the size of a city. The quantum signature was identical to the ruins Alex Turner's team was exploring on the planet below. "It's a ship," Ben realized, "or what's left of one." The asteroid cracked open as the New Horizon approached, revealing the preserved hull of a vessel that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. Its design was organic and flowing, as if grown rather than constructed. Docking ports opened automatically as Ben's ship drew near, systems that had waited eons for visitors finally fulfilling their purpose. Inside the derelict, Ben's team found wonders that challenged their understanding of physics and engineering. The ship's corridors were lined with crystalline panels that displayed star charts of the entire galaxy, but not as it existed now. These charts showed the galaxy as it had been millions of years ago, when different species ruled different sectors. And the current council powers were nothing more than primitive civilizations huddling around their home stars. The architects weren't just advanced, Ben reported to the growing human leadership. They were ancient when the Valkyrie first learned to make fire. Colonel Sarah Mitchell was dealing with more immediate concerns as Valkyrie strike forces began probing the Outer Rim's defenses. The Exile had been meant to remove humanity from galactic affairs permanently, but the Council's intelligence networks had detected the rapid growth of human settlements and the disturbing reports of ancient technology falling into human hands. Sarah's defense fleet was outnumbered 3-1 when the Valkyrie arrived at New Eden. The enemy ships were larger and more heavily armed. Their crews trained in conventional warfare that had dominated galactic conflict for millennia. But Sarah had learned that conventional thinking was humanity's greatest weakness and their greatest strength. They expect us to meet them in open battle, Sarah told her fleet commanders over the quantum communication network. Instead, we're going to show them what guerrilla warfare looks like in 3 dimensions. The human ships scattered as the Valkyrie fleet entered the system, disappearing into asteroid fields and behind planetary shields. Sarah had spent months preparing for this moment, turning every piece of space debris into a potential weapon and every settlement into a fortress. The battle began when the Valkyrie attempted to establish orbital bombardment positions around New Eden. Instead of defending static positions, Sarah's ships struck from unexpected angles, using the quantum jump technology Maya Singh had developed to appear behind enemy lines before vanishing again. They're not fighting like any species we've encountered, the Valkyrie fleet commander reported to his superiors. Their tactics are completely unpredictable. Sarah smiled grimly as she watched the enemy formation begin to collapse. Humanity's greatest advantage was that they refused to follow the rules everyone else considered sacred. Commander Rick Thompson was making contact with the other exiles that the Council had driven into the Outer Rim over the millennia. The nomads were a loose collection of species that had survived in the darkness between stars, trading information and resources while avoiding the attention of galactic authorities. The humans are different, observed Krex, the leader of a Vorthok tribe that had been exiled 5,000 years earlier. The others who came before learned to hide. You learn to fight. Rick studied the assembled representatives of a dozen different species, each one bearing the scars of Council persecution. The Vorthak had been exiled for refusing to surrender their traditional weapons. The Thylorians had been banished for developing AI technology the Council considered dangerous. The Zenth Collective had been driven out for their telepathic abilities. We're all here for the same reason, Rick said. The Council fears change, and we represent change. The meeting took place aboard an ancient station that drifted in the void between star systems. The structure was older than any of the species present, built by some long-forgotten civilization that had faced the same choice now confronting humanity. The architects left messages throughout the Outer Rim. Rick continued, sharing the discoveries made by Alex Turner's team. They face the same enemy we face now. The Council isn't just a political body. It's a system designed to prevent any species from growing beyond a certain point. As Rick spoke, the assembled exiles began to understand the true scope of what they faced. The Galactic Council wasn't just maintaining order. They were maintaining stagnation, ensuring that no species could challenge the ancient hierarchy that kept the oldest civilizations in power. The architects found a way to break the cycle, Rick concluded. They left us the tools to do the same. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was studying the quantum resonance patterns that connected all the architect's sites when she made a disturbing discovery. The technology wasn't just responding to human presence. It was responding specifically to human neural patterns as if it had been designed for their species. The genetic markers I found aren't random, she reported to the growing council of human leaders. Someone guided our evolution. The architects didn't just leave technology behind, they left it for us. The implications were staggering. humanity's development, their exile, even their discovery of the Outer Rim might all have been part of a plan set in motion millions of years ago. The architects had foreseen the rise of the Council's oppressive system and had prepared a response. As the human settlements in the Outer Rim grew stronger and the alliance with the nomads deepened, the Council began to realize that their simple exile had become something far more dangerous. Humanity wasn't just surviving in the darkness between stars, they were thriving, and they were no longer alone. Jake Morrison stood in the vast assembly hall of the Outer Rim Station, watching as representatives from dozens of species took their seats around the circular chamber. 2 years had passed since humanity's exile, and what had begun as a desperate flight into the unknown had become something the galaxy had never seen before. The Outer Rim Alliance was taking shape, built not on ancient hierarchies or fear, but on mutual respect and shared purpose. The motion before us today will change everything, Jake announced to the assembled delegates. His voice carried easily through the chamber thanks to the architect translation technology that had been integrated into the station's systems. We propose a formal alliance between all free peoples of the Outer Rim, bound not by treaties of convenience but by shared values of freedom and cooperation. The Vorthic delegate Krex raised one of his 4 arms to signal agreement. His people had been warriors before their exile, but centuries in the Outer Rim had taught them the value of unity over individual strength. Beside him sat Jera of the Phylorian Collective, her telepathic abilities allowing her to sense the genuine hope that filled the chamber. The Zenth representative communicated through bioluminescent patterns that danced across his crystalline skin, expressing concepts that had no equivalent in spoken language. The translation systems converted his light speech into words the others could understand, but the emotional weight behind his message needed no translation. My people have waited 3,000 years for this moment, the pattern spelled out. To stand as equals rather than hide as outcasts. Jake felt the weight of history as he called for the formal vote. This was more than politics or military alliance. This was the birth of something entirely new in a galaxy that had forgotten how to change. Admiral Frank Carter watched the proceedings from the observation deck above, his attention divided between the historic vote and the tactical displays, showing the construction progress across the Outer Rim. The shipyards of New Eden had become the heart of the Alliance's military might, producing vessels that combined human engineering with architect technology and the specialized knowledge of their new allies. The first of the new Dreadnought-class ships hung in the void beyond the station, its hull gleaming with the strange alloys the architects had perfected millions of years ago. The vessel was massive, dwarfing anything in the Council fleets, but its true power lay not in size but in the revolutionary technology that made it possible. "Construction report, Admiral," called Captain Lisa Hayes as she approached from the tactical station. Her promotion to fleet captain had come with the rapid expansion of human forces, but her focus remained on the practical challenges of building a military from scratch. "The Defiance is ready for trials," Frank replied, nodding toward the massive ship. "The architect power cores are integrating perfectly with our systems. Maya's quantum drive modifications should give us speed advantages the Council can't match." Lisa studied the technical specifications on her tablet. The fusion of human innovation with ancient technology was producing capabilities that neither could achieve alone. The quantum drives could move ships across vast distances almost instantly, while the architect energy systems provided virtually unlimited power. "The Council won't expect this level of advancement," Lisa observed. "Their intelligence reports still classify us as a primitive species with crude technology." Frank's smile was grim. Let them keep thinking that. Underestimating humanity has become their favorite mistake. Dr. Pete Collins was overseeing the completion of humanity's 3rd terraformed world when the breakthrough came. The process that had once taken decades was now completed in months, thanks to the architect biotechnology they had discovered on the ancient worlds. The organisms weren't just tools for reshaping planetary environments. They were intelligent, capable of adapting to any world and transforming it into something suitable for multiple species. The atmospheric composition is perfect, Pete reported to Kate Williams as they stood on the observation deck of the terraforming station. Below them, the planet Eden 3 sparkled like a jewel, its surface covered with the distinctive blue-green vegetation that marked successful TERRAFOR. Kate watched as the first transport ships descended toward the New World, carrying settlers from a dozen different species. Humans, Vorthic, Thylorians, and others who had found new hope in the Alliance were building something unprecedented. Multi-species colonies where different peoples work together as equals. The refugees from Council space keep coming, Kate observed. Word is spreading that there's an alternative to the old system. Pete nodded, checking the biological readings from the planet's surface. The Council's grip on their own people is weakening. When species see what we've built out here, they start asking why they need permission to innovate or explore. Engineer Maya Singh's latest breakthrough had revolutionized more than just transportation and communication. The quantum network that connected all Alliance worlds was becoming something far more sophisticated than anyone had imagined. Information flowed instantly across vast distances, but more importantly, the network was learning. The system is developing its own intelligence, Maya explained to the Alliance leadership during their weekly briefing. Not artificial intelligence, as we understand it, but something that emerges from the quantum connections between all our settlements. The implications were staggering. The Alliance wasn't just sharing technology and resources. They were creating a collective consciousness that spanned multiple star systems, allowing for coordination and cooperation on a scale the galaxy had never seen. The Council maintains control through isolation, Maya continued. They keep species separate, limit communication, and prevent the kind of cooperation we're achieving. This network makes their control model obsolete. Captain Lisa Hayes was leading the first major offensive operation when everything changed. The target was a slave world in the contested border region where Valkyrie corporations had enslaved over 2 million beings from various species. Intelligence reports indicated that the slaves were being used to mine rare elements needed for Council weapon systems. Remember, Lisa addressed her strike force commanders over the quantum network, we're not here to conquer. We're here to liberate. Every being on that world goes free, regardless of species. The assault began with precision strikes against the orbital platforms that guarded the slave world. The new Alliance ships moved with impossible speed, appearing in multiple locations simultaneously thanks to Maya's quantum drive technology. The Valkyrie defenders found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere at once. Their ships are using unknown technology, reported the Valkyrie orbital commander to his superiors. They're appearing and disappearing faster than our sensors can track. Lisa's flagship, the Liberation, led the assault on the primary slave compound. The ship's architect-enhanced shields absorbed the defensive fire while her Marines deployed using quantum transport technology that placed them directly inside the enemy. Fortifications. The liberation of the slave world took less than 6 hours. The Valkyrie forces, expecting a conventional assault, were completely unprepared for the Alliance's revolutionary tactics. More importantly, the freed slaves included representatives from dozens of species, many of whom chose to join the Alliance rather than return to Council space. 2 million new allies, Lisa reported as the evacuation ships departed for Alliance territory. And word of what we did here will spread throughout Council space. But the liberation had consequences beyond the immediate rescue. Council intelligence finally understood that the Outer Rim had become something far more dangerous than a collection of human refugees. The Alliance possessed technology that could threaten Council supremacy, and they were using it to undermine the very foundations of galactic order. High Counselor Vexthara convened an emergency session as reports flooded in from across Council space. Slave revolts were breaking out on a dozen worlds. Border systems were declaring independence and requesting Alliance protection. The careful hierarchy that had maintained galactic stability for millennia was beginning to collapse. The human exile has become a galactic revolution, she declared to the assembled Council members. They must be eliminated before their infection spreads further. The decision was unanimous. The Council would deploy the Extinction Fleet, a massive armada designed for the complete elimination of entire star systems. The Alliance had grown too powerful to be contained by conventional means. As the great ships of the Council fleet began their mobilization, humanity and their allies prepared for the final confrontation. The Outer Rim had become more than a refuge. For the galaxy's outcasts, it had become the birthplace of a new age, and its defenders would not surrender without a fight that would reshape the stars themselves. Commander Rick Thompson's reconnaissance ship materialized at the edge of Council space just as the massive Extinction Fleet began its final preparations. The sight that greeted him defied comprehension. Over 10,000 warships stretched across 3 star systems, their combined firepower capable of reducing entire worlds to cosmic dust. At the center of the armada hung the Council's ultimate weapon, a moon-sized battle station that pulsed with dark energy. "My God," whispered his communications officer as the tactical displays showed the true scope of the approaching threat. "They mean to wipe us out completely." Rick studied the formation with growing alarm. This wasn't just a military fleet. It was an instrument of genocide designed to eliminate the Alliance and everything it represented. The Council had abandoned all pretense of civilization in favor of total destruction. "Get this information back to Admiral Carter immediately," Rick ordered. "Maximum quantum burst transmission. The Alliance needs to know what's coming." As Rick's ship prepared to retreat into the safety of the Outer Rim, another discovery changed everything. Hidden among the Council fleet were ships from species that had supposedly supported the Extinction Order. But the quantum sensors revealed a different truth. Many of the crews were broadcasting secret signals, indicating dissent within the Council's own ranks. Captain Ben Davis was leading a desperate infiltration mission into the heart of Council space when he intercepted those same signals. His modified ship, equipped with the latest architect cloaking technology, had penetrated deeper into enemy territory than any Alliance vessel before. "The signals are coming from the Corothan Sector Fleet," reported his intelligence officer. "They're requesting a meeting with Alliance representatives." Ben felt a surge of hope. The Corothans had been among the more moderate Council members, often questioning the harsh treatment of younger species. If they were ready to defect, others might follow. The secret meeting took place on a neutral station in the disputed border zone. Ben found himself face-to-face with Admiral Vexcall of the Corothan fleet, a being whose forearms trembled with barely controlled emotion. "The Extinction Fleet will not stop with your Alliance," Vexcall explained through the translation matrix. "High Counselor Vexthara has convinced the elder species that any challenge to their authority must be eliminated permanently. After you, they will turn on us." Ben leaned forward in his chair. "What are you proposing?" "Rebellion," Vexcall replied simply. "Half the Council fleets are ready to turn against the Extinction Fleet. We have been waiting for someone to show us that resistance was possible." The revelation sparked a flurry of activity throughout Alliance space. Jake Morrison coordinated diplomatic contacts with moderate Council members, while Admiral Frank Carter prepared for the largest space battle in galactic history. The quantum communication network buzzed with strategic planning as allies old and new prepared for the confrontation that would determine the galaxy's future. Dr. Alex Turner made the final crucial discovery in the deepest chambers of the Architect. Ruins on Kepler 442b, the ancient technology had been responding to the approaching crisis, activating systems that have remained dormant for millions of years. The walls of the chamber now pulsed with energy patterns that spoke directly to human consciousness. "It's not just technology," Alex reported to the Alliance leadership. "It's a test." The Architects faced the same choice we face now. They could have used their power to dominate the galaxy, but they chose a different path. The revelation came with understanding that transcended language or culture. The Architect technology was designed to enhance cooperation and growth, not conquest and control. It would only function fully for those who proved worthy of its gifts through their actions and choices. "The cycle of oppression ends with us," Alex continued, his voice filled with wonder. "The Architects didn't disappear. They ascended to something greater, leaving their gifts for those who would break the pattern of galactic domination. The climactic battle began at the edge of Alliance space as the Extinction Fleet emerged from quantum space in a formation that blotted out the stars. Admiral Frank Carter stood on the bridge of the Defiance, watching as 10,000 enemy ships deployed for what the Council intended to be the final battle. All Alliance ships, this is Admiral Carter, his voice carried across the quantum network, to vessels scattered throughout multiple star systems. Today we fight not just for our survival, but for the right of all species to determine their own destiny. The battle erupted across 3 dimensions as Alliance ships used quantum drives to attack from unexpected angles. The new technology allowed smaller, more maneuverable vessels to strike at the massive Council dreadnoughts before vanishing into quantum space. But the enemy's overwhelming numbers began to tell as Alliance ships were destroyed faster than they could be replaced. Colonel Sarah Mitchell led the ground assault on key Council installations while the space battle raged overhead. Her forces, enhanced with architect biotechnology, moved through enemy positions like ghosts. The quantum transport systems allowed her Marines to appear inside heavily defended bases, striking at command centers and weapons arrays. "The enemy fleet is beginning to fracture," reported Captain Lisa Hayes from her position commanding the Alliance's main battle line. "The Corothan ships are turning against their former allies." The rebellion within the Council fleet spread like wildfire as moderate species realized that the Extinction Fleet's victory would mean their own eventual destruction. The careful hierarchy that had maintained galactic order for millennia collapsed as old alliances crumbled and new ones formed in the heat of battle. Dr. Amy Rodriguez watched from the Alliance's mobile command center as the architect technology reached its full potential. The quantum network that connected all Alliance worlds suddenly expanded, encompassing the rebel Council fleets and even reaching into the heart of enemy territory. For the first time in galactic history, different species were truly united in thought and purpose. "The technology isn't just connecting our ships," Amy realized with growing amazement. "It's connecting our minds. We're becoming something new." The transformation was visible on every ship's sensors as the quantum field surrounding the Alliance forces began to pulse with harmonious energy. The architect gift was revealing its true nature, not as a weapon but as an evolution of consciousness that transcended individual species boundaries. High Counselor Vexthara watched her carefully planned genocide dissolve into chaos as her own. Fleets turned against each other. The ancient Velkari leader had ruled through fear and control for millennia, but she found herself facing an enemy that grew stronger through cooperation and unity. "Deploy the Omega weapon," she ordered desperately. "Destroy everything if necessary." The moon-sized battle station began to charge its ultimate weapon, a device capable of sterilizing entire star systems. But as the dark energy built toward critical levels, something unexpected happened. The quantum field generated by the Alliance's united consciousness began to resonate with the weapon's power source, turning the Council's own technology against them. Maya Singh understood what was happening before anyone else. "The architect technology isn't just defensive," she announced over the command network. "It's transformative. The Omega weapon is being converted into something else entirely." Instead of unleashing destruction, the battle station became a beacon of creative energy that spread throughout the galaxy. Worlds that had been stripped bare by Council exploitation began to bloom with new life. Species that had been oppressed for millennia found their natural abilities enhanced and expanded. The battle ended not with victory or defeat, but with transformation. The Extinction Fleet found itself part of a new galactic consciousness that valued diversity and growth over control and stagnation. High Counselor Vexthara herself was changed, her ancient hatred replaced by understanding of what the galaxy could become. Jake Morrison stood in the new Galactic Assembly, no longer as humanity's representative, but as the first Chancellor of a truly united galaxy. The old Council chambers had been transformed into something that welcomed all voices, where decisions were made through consensus rather than domination. "The age of exile is over," he declared to the assembled representatives of 1,000 species. The age of cooperation begins today. Kate Williams watched from New Eden as former enemies worked together to build settlements that housed multiple species in harmony. The Outer Rim had become the model for galactic civilization, proving that diversity and cooperation could achieve more than any single species alone. The story of humanity's exile had become the foundation, myth of a new galactic age. The species that had been banished for being too dangerous had instead become the catalyst for unprecedented unity and growth. In the end, the Council's greatest fear had come true. Humanity had indeed changed everything, but the change was far more beautiful than anyone had dared to imagine.